The number 8 gale or storm signal will remain in force until at least 10 p.m. Discussions at the Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit underway. And North Korea fire at least 17 missiles with one landing near a sea border with the South. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The number 8 gale or storm signal is in force, but NonLocally has now weakened into a tropical storm. Still, the number 8 signal will remain in effect until at least 10 this evening. Earlier today, thousands of residents had to make a dash for home when the observatory replaced the number 3 signal with a number 8 at 1:40 in the afternoon. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Under the influence of NonLocally, waves were crashing on the shoreline this afternoon. The tropical cyclone's slow movement resulted in the observatory announcing the number 8 gale or storm signal at 1:40 p.m., a move that signaled the suspension of work for many people. Some of them chose to celebrate the spontaneous holiday outside, but are employees really exempt from work under such weather conditions? Under the Labor Department's Code of Practice, in times of typhoon and rainstorms, employers should only request essential personnel to return to work or assess the possibility of working from home. And in making such assessments, employers should provide information about the scope and mode of work for employees as early as possible. Various parts of Hong Kong experienced the force of NonLocally throughout the day. In Hung Fa Chun, strong gusts of wind were felt periodically. But this flooding hotspot did not face such aquatic disasters today. Meanwhile, joggers were a common sight at the Hung Hom Ferry Pier. Many local residents said they were not overly concerned about the storm.
Right now, I think it's fine. But looking at the waves from the view of the harbor, I think it's gonna get worse. So if people want to jog, this is the perfect time right now.
Well, I feel like it's still kind of working up towards being stronger. It's not there yet, and I think, this is why people are still a bit out and about. But I think it will kind of hit really fast, and then people will try to find shelters and get to their homes.
Public transport was disrupted, including the suspension of ferry services. It is only the third time in Hong Kong's history that a number 8 signal was issued during the month of November, with the last time being 50 years ago. Here at Hung Hom Ferry Pier, the strength of the wind has fluctuated over the afternoon, and a light drizzle can be felt. With NonLocally continuing on its trajectory towards the southern Chinese coast, the observatory reminds residents to stay away from the shoreline and not to participate in water sports. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
In Macau, storm signal number 3 is still in force and is expected to be replaced with a number 8 signal at 9:30 tonight. Even though NonLocally has weakened, it will be very close to Macau and could even pass right above the enclave later tonight. Winds will strengthen and showers will become more frequent. The blue storm surge warning is now in force in Macau. Flooding is expected in low-lying areas. Members of the public are advised to take appropriate precautions. Hong Kong logged 4,709 new COVID infections today, a slight increase from yesterday. There were 430 imported cases and 8 more COVID patients have died. 4 more residential care homes reported a total of 5 coronavirus cases. 21 residents were identified as close contacts and must undergo quarantine. More than 190 schools have reported 243 COVID infections, while 14 schools are required to suspend certain classes for a week. In Macau, the mass COVID testing exercises ended at 11 this morning. Some residents rushed to the testing stations to do their nucleic acid test just before the deadline. Macau authorities said they wouldn't rule out the possibility that they would conduct another round of mass testing. Starting today, children between 5 and 11 years old can receive BioNTech jabs against COVID-19. Unlike the BioNTech vaccine administered to adults, the children's version has an orange vial cap. Some 19,000 BioNTech doses for children have already arrived in Hong Kong. Starting today, they are available at the Hong Kong Children's Hospital, Gleneagles Hospital, the CUHK Medical Center, and the Osman Ramju Sadik Memorial Sports Center. Experts are calling for more children to get vaccinated, as 9 kids aged below 11 have died so far in the current wave of infections. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy said the world must respond firmly to any Russian attempts to disrupt Ukraine's grain export corridor. Russia had suspended its participation of a grain export deal over the weekend, saying it could not guarantee safety for civilian ships because of an attack on its Black Sea fleet in Crimea. In his nightly video address, Zelensky said ships were still moving out of Ukrainian ports with cargo thanks to the work of Turkey and the United Nations, who brokered the deal in July. He added, a reliable and long-term defense is needed for the grain corridor. The deal aimed to help avert famine in poorer countries by making more wheat, sunflower oil, and fertilizer available in global markets, with a goal of easing price spikes. Meanwhile, Russia fired missiles at Ukrainian cities, including the capital Kiev, in what President Vladimir Putin called retaliation for the attack on Russia's Black Sea fleet. Ukraine said it shot most of those missiles down, but some had hit power stations, knocking out electricity and water supplies. Meanwhile, U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price expressed concern that Iran may be providing Russia with advanced weapons.
We are concerned that Russia may also seek to acquire advanced conventional weapons from Iran, such as surface-to-surface missiles that will almost certainly be used to support Russia's war against Ukraine. We've spoken before about our efforts using all appropriate means to expose, to deter, to confront Iran's provision of these munitions against the Ukrainian people. We will continue to vigorously enforce all U.S. sanctions on both the Russian and Iranian arms trade to make it harder for Iran to sell these weapons to Russia, to help the Ukrainians have what they need to defend against these threats.
And back in Hong Kong, today was the second day of the Global Financial Leaders Summit, with more than 200 international financial heavyweights attending the event at the Four Seasons Hotel in Central. The agenda included discussions with top mainland regulators and panel discussions about navigating through economic uncertainty, financial sustainability, as well as technology and innovation. Christy Kahn has more.
The much-anticipated event, Hong Kong's first mega financial forum since the outbreak of the pandemic, kicked off at the Four Seasons Hotel today. Chief Executive John Lee and Financial Secretary Paul Chan, who had just returned from Saudi Arabia yesterday, arrived at the venue this morning. According to the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, around 250 financial leaders as well as investors from more than 100 international financial firms attended the event. Around 40 participants were CEOs and presidents of top financial institutions. The Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit began with opening remarks by Eddie Yu, the chief executive of the HKMA, followed by the city's leader. In John Lee's speech, he highlighted the strengths that Hong Kong possesses in the region.
Hong Kong remains the only place in the world where the global advantage and the China advantage come together in a single city. This unique convergence makes Hong Kong the irreplaceable connection between the mainland and the rest of the world.
He added that the city had already seen an economic rebound after lifting some COVID curbs.
The worst is behind us. Opportunity and timing are right here, right now in Hong Kong. This is the moment you have been waiting for. Go for it. Get in front, not behind.
The summit featured interviews with 3 top mainland financial regulators, followed by panel discussions with leaders of global financial firms such as Blackstone, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Standard chatted when they discussed important trends and issues.
So what's different about the virtual banks is the nature of the coalitions and partnerships that you can create rather than the nature of the banking product itself. Although, of course, if the banking product is no good, nobody's going to use it. So yeah, it's been a huge success for us. We'll continue. We've got 9 digital banks in Africa.
After the panel section, the city's financial chief said the potential and opportunities of Hong Kong as an international financial center are boundless.
Along the global momentum, Hong Kong has this vision to become a premier center for green and sustainable finance that serves the green transformation in the mainland, the region, and the world. On this, we have much confidence.
The last day of the summit will be held at the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing tomorrow, featuring 2 panel discussions with global investors. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Coming up after the break, the man charged with attacking the husband of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi appears in court. And more about the government's plan to introduce pathways for eligible non-locally trained dentists to practice in Hong Kong. Welcome back to TVB News. In his first public remarks since losing Brazil's presidential election on Sunday, Jair Bolsonaro stopped short of contesting the election result, but did not directly concede defeat. Bolsonaro authorized his chief of staff to begin the transition of power process with representatives of leftist president-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Jair Bolsonaro took more than 44 hours to comment publicly after Brazil's presidential runoff election was decided by electoral authorities on Sunday. The delay sparked fears he would refuse to accept the narrow result, which saw him lose to leftist Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who secured a 3rd term as Brazilian president. Bolsonaro did not directly concede defeat during his first public speech in the wake of the election. However, his chief of staff, Ciro Nogueira, later revealed that Bolsonaro had authorized him to begin the transition process with Lula's representatives, saying he would abide by Brazil's constitution. Brazil's Supreme Court said it considered that by authorizing the government transition, Bolsonaro was recognizing the result of the election. Still, during his address, Bolsonaro thanked his supporters, many of them truckers, who have been blocking highways to protest his election loss. Analysts believe Bolsonaro is now seeking to set the stage for a comeback in the 2026 presidential election by keeping his conservative movement alive. As for Lula, the Brazilian president-elect has vowed to overturn many of Bolsonaro's policies, including pro-gun measures and loose environmental regulations that critics say have damaged the Amazon rainforest. Lula's aide said on Tuesday that he would attend this month's COP27 United Nations Climate Summit in Egypt. He's said to be inaugurated on January 1st.
Former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to return to power, saying his right-wing camp is likely to win yesterday's national election. With 70% of votes counted, Netanyahu's conservative Likud party and its religious and far-right allies are on pace to control a majority in parliament. Incumbent Prime Minister Yair Lapid's short-lived ruling coalition that hailed largely from the center-left appears close to collapse. Though the landscape could shift as the ballot count trickles in, the partial tally showed Netanyahu, who is on trial for corruption he denies, leading a bloc of 4 parties taking 67 of the Knesset's 120 seats. The man charged with breaking into U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home and hitting her husband with a hammer pleaded not guilty in a San Francisco court Tuesday to attempted murder and other charges. More from NBC News.
Wearing a jailhouse jumpsuit and his arm in a sling, David DePape entered a not guilty plea today. The district attorney successfully arguing for no bail, with the 42-year-old facing a litany of federal and state charges, including attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and false imprisonment.
We certainly view him as a public safety risk to the city of San Francisco, certainly to the speaker as time goes forward.
Visiting her husband today, Nancy Pelosi says Paul is making steady progress. Investigators say the 82-year-old was struck in the head with a hammer after DePape broke into the couple's home and told them he did not plan to surrender and that he would go through Pelosi. In the criminal complaint, DePape compared himself to the founding fathers, telling authorities he was fighting against tyranny without the option of surrender.
We're going to be looking into Mr. DePape, his mental state.
Inside this garage where the suspect lived, 16 miles away from the Pelosi home, investigators recovered paperwork, rubber gloves, hammers, and a sword. From your time with him, did you get the sense that he may do something wrong?
To be honest, I kind of had the suspicion something strange might happen.
Blogs written under DePape's name shared mixed ideology and more recently far-right conspiracy theories. The attack itself fueled by misinformation. The former president on a podcast sharing debunked theories that police say never happened.
It seems it was broken from the inside to the out. And, that it wasn't a break-in, it was a breakout.
After recovering a journal during his arrest, the federal complaint says DePape wanted to use Nancy to lure another individual to DePape, but offered no further explanation. Tonight, new frightening details from the man accused of a grisly attack.
Back here at home, Chief Executive John Lee's recent policy address has proposed introducing pathways for eligible non-locally trained dentists to practice in Hong Kong. The government is planning to submit the proposal's details to the Legislative Council next year. Jackie Lin reports.
A dire sight reflecting the acute manpower crunch in Hong Kong's public dental services. Today, several lawmakers flagged the issue, calling on the government to empathize with those plagued by dental ailments, especially the elderly.
In the district, we can see that elders couldn't sleep, couldn't eat because of tooth pain, and this is really very heartbreaking. If they have two teeth or three teeth that are in pain, then they will have to wait for at least 2 or 3 times before they can get the treatment.
Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau revealed some 50 government dentist posts are currently vacant. He said the government will beef up manpower by allowing more eligible non-locally trained dentists to practice in Hong Kong, with details to be submitted to the Legislative Council next year. But the government will not consider increasing the walk-in quotas for public dental services for now.
The original purpose of setting up these dental clinics was to provide services for the civil servants, and therefore it's very limited. And also, given the manpower of dentists, for the time being, there is simply no possibility that we can increase the number of sessions.
Nelson Wong, president of the Hong Kong Dental Association, suggests the government should only exempt licensing exams for non-locally trained dentists after they practice in the public medical system for a period of time to better monitor their quality. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Stay dry in this weather. Bye for now.